What if I told you that this whole reel right here was created all in Python? Everything down to the timer, the confetti, answer being revealed, the questions being asked, and all of the choices that you can be, that it could have. Everything here was created all in Python. No templates, no nothing. So this is actually what we're going to program today, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So without further ado, let's hop right in and start coding. All right, so before we get started and we start creating our reels all in Python, we're basically going to need to create a virtual environment for this project. I like to use virtual environments because it can just save you a ton of hassle dealing with different types of dependencies along the line. So when you start a new project, I highly recommend this. So to do so, I'm just going to say simply python-m, and then this will say venv, and then this will tell venv, our virtual environment package, to create a virtual environment. Now you could name the environment whatever you want here. I'm just going to call it quiz env to know that, hey, this is my environment for my quiz project. So, and if I can just hit enter, this will go ahead and take the time to create that project. So now that this project or this environment has been created, I can say ls, and I can see that there is quiz env. So now what I like to do is I like to upgrade pip, the associated pip with that environment, and build and setup tools. So let's hop right in and start doing that now. To do that, we're just going to simply type, before we can do that, we actually have to activate this virtual environment, or else when we do those things, they'll just apply it to our system. Now I can tell right now that I'm not in my quiz env because there is not like a little, and I'll show you what it looks like, but there's not like some sort of identifier that's acknowledging that my terminal is in that. To do so, I can simply say source, and then I can say quiz env. Now, if you're on Linux and Mac, this will work. If you're on Windows, I'll tell you what's different, but essentially you'll do bin/activate. Now, this is the command that'll activate it on Mac and Windows. If you're using Mac and Linux, if you're using Windows, what you'll do is do scripts in place of bin, but scripts with a capital S. And I'll go ahead and activate that. And right now you can see that this is the thing that identifies that my terminal now is utilizing this virtual environment. So if I do any Python command, it'll be related specifically to that virtual environment with the Python within that virtual environment. All right, so now that I have my virtual environment activated, what I like to do is I always like to upgrade pip, wheel, and setup tools just right in the beginning, just because sometimes when you have a newer version of pip, it can help pull different things in and have better availability to just download the stuff that you need. So to do so, I do python-m, and I do pip install -u, which means upgrade, and I do pip, wheel, and setup tools. Now, one thing you want to know is you'll probably want to do python-m when you're doing pip install and it requires updating pip, because if you do pip install -u pip, sometimes it gets issues because you're installing itself and it can cause weird things to happen, or it just errors out. And so the better way to do it is what I found is just do python-m, meaning use this version of Python and call the module pip to do what it needs to do, and it usually always works for me. So go ahead and do that. And then once this is done, we'll go ahead and we will install the needed and necessary packages to build out our quiz reel in Python. All right, so now that it's done, let's go ahead and build or install the packages that we need for our quiz that are needed to build out this reel. So the packages that we're going to need, so we'll do pip install, and the package we need is movie-py. This is the one thing that helps us create our video. And then we'll say numpy, pandas, which I'll show you how you can use pandas later. And then it's going to be opencv-python. And let me check my notes to make sure I didn't forget anything else. Oh, and then we also need to do a pillow, all right? So in case we use any images later on, or in version 2 of this video, we can use pillow. So we'll go ahead and install this. And once it's done installing, I'll let you know, and we'll come back and we'll import all the stuff that we need. All right, so now that we have those installed, it may have taken some time on your end, may have been super fast, but usually it'll get done. And now we can go ahead and import them. So to do it, we'll do import CV2 usually. Then we'll say import movie-py .editor. This will need this, and sometimes people do as me for movie, or me or movie MP for movie-py, depending on what you do. I've just seen it both ways. I'll do MP for movie-py, and you can do ME for movie-py editor, or MPE for movie-py editor if you want. Just whatever makes the most sense to you. All right, and then we'll also need to install import numpy, and the convention for this one I know is MP, and then MP, and then we'll start with these two. We might also need to do import OS, which is just found within Python import OS, and we'll start with those. Those are the ones we'll start with. If we need to import more, we'll come back to the ones that any other ones that we'll import them as we go. All right, so now that we have everything installed with our virtual environment, that's set up, as well as our imports into our script, we can go and get to the fun stuff, which is creating our reel. Now, for this reel, I basically had it set up so it was a question with 4 possible answers. Now, the question we use is which mode is used to open a file for reading in Python. And I gave it 4 choices that a user could think of as they were kind of going through the quiz and kind of being timed, right? So we're going to create all these different elements. So now let's start off with just the question and the choices. So to get the question, we're just going to say, question, I'm going to create a variable is equal to, and then I said which mode is used to open a file for reading. So which mode is used to open a file for reading in Python, right? And then I gave it 4 choices. Now, in this, we need to determine what the answer is. Now, there's 2 possible methods that you could do this. Well, there's probably more than 2, but essentially, I went with the choice of saying choices is going to be equal to is going to be a list, and I said the very first index is always going to be the answer. So in our case, we're going to do R there, and then we'll say read, and then append, and then X, right? And then, like, if you're reading this, say, from like a list of like, or several different files, or from a spreadsheet, or you're just going to go ahead and always change these or make these inputs into a script, you just have to have some form of the answer. Now, and doing so, I went and said that the answer is going to equal to, like I mentioned, is going to equal to choice index of 0, right? And that's just what I'm going to go to for this project. Now, we don't always necessarily want it. Now, it just happens that like doing this, that the answers end up in this time that it generated. I could generate another one, or I could have generated another one where it showed that like R could have been in any of these different positions. Now, to do this, we basically have to randomize that input. So once we've got our choices, we're going to collect the answer. Now I'm going to say we need to import random. So import random. And now I want to basically shuffle this list, and so that they're not always in this exact order, right? So I can say random shuffle, and then I'll pass it the choices. And basically what this does is we'll shuffle up all these in the different spots, and it does it in place, so we don't actually need to return anything. And to show that, I can basically say print, and we'll make this an F string. We'll say choices is equal to that. This is kind of like the before, and this is our after. So if we go ahead and run this, we will see that we should have 2 outputs of our list, and we have choices. This is the before, right, where our answer was at the very beginning, and then the different choices. Now we see that they're all kind of mixed up. So from here, let's go ahead and make we kind of have it basically set up of what we're going to use. And now let's go ahead and let's set up our very first kind of instance of what this reel will look like and to kind of display the question. All right, so to show basically our very first clip of what it may look like, or whatever a reel may look like, we basically need to do what's called creating a clip, right? And what we first want to display is the question. So we're going to create a text clip using MoviePy. So to do so, we're going to say question clip, and assign this to a variable, is going to be equal to mp.textClip. And now what we get to do here is we get to pass in a bunch of variables that we want to use. So in our case, we need to pass in question that's the text that we want to display. And then we also want to do the font size, or this is what I kind of did. So I said the font size is going to be equal to 100. And then I also said that the color of the text is going to be equal to white. Now, what I found here too is you can pass in, like, if it's like the basic colors like black, white, red, green, blue, stuff like that, you can pass in the name. Otherwise, if you need to pass in stuff, you can also pass in like the hexadecimal value of the string. So from there, once we have the color, I also passed in the size, and basically this is going to be the position of where you want this text. 800. These are what I put in from when I originally made this. And then if you want a background color, you can put in a background color like I did. So I put in a background color, and my background color, so it's just BG color, and like I did, was just black. So just like that, we have our text clip, right? But now we need to do a few things to our text clip. So once we have that, we essentially need, what we want to do is this, and sorry, I said that this was the size, or this was the position. It was not. I apologize for that. Then what we now need to do is we need to set the size and set the duration, how long we want this clip to be. So to do so, we're going to say question clip, and then equals question clip dot set position. And right here, we're going to say, give it a tuple value. And the first one is going to be the X, and the last one is going to be the Y. Now, what you can do is do strings, and you can say like left, right, or center for your X and Y, which will basically just kind of left or right or center justify. So like in our case, for my X, what we did here is you can see that it's all centered. So for our X, we want it to be centered. So we can just type in center there. And then for the Y, I believe I put in 300. So now that'll set our position. And what's cool about some of the things with MoviePy is what you can do is you can chain together, like you you can change the other different actions and return out a clip. For example, I could set all this in here, but I could also do something like set position, and then I can also do set duration. And then I give this in the number of seconds that I want it to be, which we never determined, right? So this will be the number of seconds that this clip kind of appears throughout our whole reel. Well, we want our reel to essentially be, and I guess in this case I had it as 9 seconds. So we should do something like total duration is going to be equal to 9 seconds. So if that's the total duration, that's how I want this last. Well, we don't want our question just falling off at the end, so we're gonna set that to total duration. And then just like that, we've kind of created our question clip. But how do we actually view our video? How do we get to see what that video looks like, right? Well, what we need to do is we need to write that video file out. And to do so, we can say question clip, and then we can say write video file. Yeah, write video file. And we give it the path of where we want it to write. In our case, we can just say we want it to write to this folder, and then we also just need to give it the name of the file. In this case, we can say quizreel.mp4, and then right here we can tell it the frame rate that we want it at, which I believe I said 24, and then the codec, or codec, however you say it. And in this case, I said libx264. All right. So this should give us everything that should create in our current directory, our kind of initial template of our video clip. So let's go ahead and we'll run this. All right. Now you can see that it's writing, and just like that, our video clip's done. So I can go ahead and I can check in my folder, and just like that, it appears right there, quiz reel. And we can see that this has a very tiny quiz reel. So I believe we need to go ahead and we need to set the size of our video to be, so initially we'll do this. It's going to be actually 1080, and then we'll say 1920, because that's the size of a reel. So go ahead and rerun this. All right, so now it's recreating our video, and might take a little bit longer on my computer as I'm trying to record a video and create a video at the same time than it does on yours. But once this is done creating, I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so now that it's done, we can look at our reel. But you notice that when we look at it, there's something off. So when I create this, like I just see the question right in the middle, black screen, and it looks kind of small, right? But that's also just because that's my editor, right? So if I bring up the Finder window, we see that our image size or dimension is 1080 by 1020. The codec used is H.264. It is 9 seconds duration, but we don't have our text fit to match that of within the bounds of which we want. So let's go ahead and add a function or create a function to fix that for us. So essentially we're gonna go up here and we're gonna create a function called wrap text. All right, and this is basically going to take in a string and kind of the width that we want it to fit to. So we're gonna say our text and our width. And all we're essentially gonna do is gonna say wrapped text is going to equal to a new line dot join, and now we can leverage a function or a built-in package called text wrap. Go up here, import text wrap, and within it, what's nice is they already have kind of a function that allows us to do this. So we can say text wrap dot wrap, and then all we have to do is give it the text and the width, or text this and the width. All right, now let's see why we need to do this join, right? So if I come in here, if I come in here and I take this out and I print what this gives us, we will see, and I'll comment out creating the video clip really quick. We actually need to wrapped question is equal to wrap text, and we need to pass in our actual question. And then I believe I mean, we could try different things and you can make it kind of go in and out the best that you want, but I gave it a width of 20. So if we go ahead and run this, what you shall see is this gives us out a list of, if we wanted to fit our string with, I believe it's just basically wrapping it, so saying like every 20 characters, it'll go ahead and we could count these out. It'll basically split the string based off that. And so what we need to do is if we want to wrap it, then we have to, essentially every time where this comes out, we need to create a new line, which is why we do this. And since it's a list, we can use the join operator with a string and just say, there's our new line. And then we can just simply say return our wrapped text, or excuse me, our wrapped text. So just like that, we should have, and I can come out here and we can say, we can take out this print because we don't need that anymore. And then we can say, well, what is our our wrapped question, and we can see what that exactly looks like. So now we see that this is what our question will look like when we wrap the text. So let's go back here and let's go and put that back into our text clip. But now rather than the question with that whole string, we're going to pass in the wrap question at that same font size. Now we could have left in our whole question, but just lowered the font. But if you lower the font, then you risk the effect of not being able to even read it if your string is too long, right? So in this case, hopefully it'll wrap our text to fit our needs. And if it doesn't, we can go ahead and adjust. So if I go ahead and now rerun this, again, this may take a minute to create the video file. So once this is done, I'll come back and I'll show you exactly what our new video looks like with the wrap text. So that's finished. Now let's go ahead and go look at it. If I go here and I click my space bar on this, when I have it selected on a Mac, it will pop up. And now we can see that our text is wrapped, right? But it's like edge to edge. Now we'll fix this here in a minute because we're going to go ahead and do our background and create our background clip. So that way we can then set really the size boundaries that we really want this text clip to fit to, which was what I initially said was that 800, none variable that we changed. But we'll get into that here in a minute. So essentially this wraps our text. We've put it into our reel, and now we have a 9-second video clip where if I just play this, nothing fun or interesting happens because it's literally just text on our reel. So now let's go ahead, like I mentioned, let's go ahead and do the gradient background. Or let's create a background. We'll start off with just creating a color, and then we'll do something fun like I did over here, where you can do like the Python theme colors or gradient or whatever you kind of want, and we'll go from there. So we'll kind of leave this as is. Again, we'll come back to this and modify this back to the original 800 by none. But essentially, we will go and create kind of this gradient image. So we're going to create a gradient image variable, and we're going to create a function called create gradient image. And what we want to do for this is we basically want this image, in my opinion, you'd say the size of the image, and then you'd give it the first color and then the second color of which you want it to do. So the size, we're going to give it a tuple, and we're going to say our 1080. And to be honest, we should be a little bit better with this, and just say video size is going to be equal to, and we'll say 1080 by 1920, right? So now I can just take this variable and I can come and put it right here, place of this. And then the colors that I used was I'm going to do the string color, or no, excuse me, I did not do the string color. That's right. I did an actual RGB value. So for the yellow color, it was 255, 211, and then 67. And then for the blue color, it was going to be 54, 119, and 174. Yeah. Okay. So now we got to go ahead. That's our inputs. Now we got to go ahead and create this function. We'll scroll on up here, create a new function, def, and then we'll say size. Color 1 and color 2, and then that'll be the creation our function here. All right, so to do this, we assume that this is going to be a tuple. So you can create some if you want to. You could also create like you can do what's called the I just forgot the name of it. It's essentially it's like the type. You kind of tell it the type of this expected variable, because like in Python I can put whatever I want here, but when you create this function, it's set like when you do something like this, it says that I'm expecting this to be a tuple. Okay, so now that we know that that's expected to be a tuple, we can then just say the width. Or we can assume that we can do this, right? Height is equal to size. And then we can say that we want to create an image, and image is equal to, and this is where our numpy array or numpy comes into play, because we're going to say np dot, and we're first going to make it all 0. Means the whole thing is going to be just black. And we just wanted to say the size that or width and height, and we wanted to give it 4 channels. So like with alpha colors, right? Because we're going to do the gradient, so we need some alpha stuff in there. And then for that, this needs to be here. And then we want to say that the D type, the dimension type, is going to be equal to an np.un8. All right, so with that in mind, now what we can do is, with some help from ChatGPT and stuff like that, I kind of looked into like the best way to create a gradient, because I wasn't 100% sure. I knew that we could loop through starting from a given spot, loop through and like each of the pixels, and then figure it out that way. And that's essentially what ChatGPT told me to do. And so that's kind of what I looked up, when I was looking at this. It's, AI tools are helpful. Like you can use ChatGPT to help you out do stuff. But it's also helpful to know kind of the basics of this, because when it was helping out with some of these things, like it was not giving me the right answers, and I had to go back through and figure out why. And so just a caveat there, like I do sometimes use things like ChatGPT and other AI stuff, and they can be helpful, but you also need to know your stuff, because they can also lie to you in those cases. So we're going to go through, so for y in the range of the height, and this is going to be double for loop, so for x in the range of our width, so there we go. All right, so now we're going to get the R, G, and B values and create an image basically out of that. So for our R values, it's going to be R is equal to color 1 at its first value, again because these are tuples, plus the color of color 2. This is kind of what we come up with here at its first value, minus, because this is going to help us create the gradient of color 1 at its 0 value, times our x plus y value. So basically, as we go through, as we're going to move through this, what this is going to do, and then divided by our width plus our height to take into account all of that. So what essentially this is doing is we're using this algorithm for all of our, because we need to create, we're actually going to do this for all of these things, but rather than G and B, but the difference is in this is, all right, G and B. So the difference though is going to be the indexing. So this is going to be index 1, this is going to be index 2, and this is going to be index 1, and this is going to be index 2, and again, index 1, index 2. Now, what is happening here? So essentially what's happening is we're taking our first color, and then we're applying this algorithm to see like our second color minus our first color, and we're trying to multiply it times our x plus our y, and divide it all by our height with our width, because as we're kind of going through an image, if I'm doing a gradient from here down to there, the bottom corner, what we essentially need to do is like, well, at this top corner over here, we want it to be basically all of our first color. And then as we move along and then go through, we eventually want it to end up, this is a better example. So our very top corner up here, we want it to be that first color. But as we move through our X and Y, back and forth, this way and then this way, we want it to basically, we're going to do a gradient from here all the way down to here. So that way, as we move through this, that there's shade, like eventually as we get towards the middle of this, there should be kind of shades of it, kind of like a gradient line slightly going through this thing. We don't want a hard line, we want it to be slightly. Which is why that if I run through this, color 1 is our yellow color. So plus the color 2 minus the color 1. So we're trying to see the difference there. And then multiply that by our x value plus our y value. Well, in this case, for the very first run, for that very first pixel up in that corner, it's going to be 0, 0. Meaning that this whole thing gets hit to 0, and then it leaves us with our color 1 at index 0 with the value of that for color 1, which is why you end up with something that looks like this, right? And then what we need to do, so that's going to do it for all of our different values, and then we need to go and create an image, and we need to assign at yx, because in OpenCV it is height column, it's yx, not xy, like it is in a lot of things. And then you can say it's going to equal to this tuple where it's the int of r, because since we are doing some dividing here, you could end up with floats. So int r, int g, and int b. And then we did say 4 channels, so it needs to be 4 channels, and then we're just going to say 255, meaning that it's going to be completely seen. The alpha value is going to be completely seen. So if we've done this, we'll hit return our image, and if done correctly, we can come all the way down here, and now we can basically, rather than creating a text clip, we can create an image clip and then combine the two. So let's do that. All right, so now we have our gradient image created. We need to go ahead and we need to create our gradient clip. But one thing I wanted to double check through here, make sure we have all these right. And I got a couple errors here. So one thing to note, this should be uint8, not unit8. And then, like I mentioned before, OpenCV is height, or like yx, and not xy, and I have xy here, so this will cause issues if I run this. So we'll just do that, and then width, make sure all this is still good. That should pass in. That would also have given us an index error. But now we need to go ahead and create a video clip, like I mentioned. So we're going to say gradient clip is equal to image clip, and then we need to pass it in our image, and in the case that we did, it's going to be our gradient image. And then we also also need to pass in if it is a mask, which I believe by default is set to false, but just in case. What that basically means is like if you need to mask something out in your video, you could create an image clip to do that. In our case, we don't necessarily need to do that. And then what's nice is like before, like up here, I just created like the text clip, and then afterwards I did set position. But what you can do is this, once this completes, this will create your image clip. But now you can also kind of chain this because the output of this is kind of that image clip. You can say set duration is equal to total clip. So like you could have a big old long kind of nasty string that does it, or you can break it up into little things. And sometimes it's better to break it up. And in this case, you could use it. So now that we have your image clip, we need to combine this text clip with our actual image clip to give us kind of something that we can use. And to do that, you basically need to use a, we'll say final clip here is going to be equal to mp dot, and this is going to be a composite, I believe it's video clip, yeah. But the input into this is basically all of the clips, so it can kind of put them together. And in any case, the clip that we need is we need to do our, we're going to pass in a list, and we're going to do our gradient clip first. So gradient clip, make sure you don't do the image, and then our question clip. And then you could from here simply just give it, like you could just do that, to be honest. Oh, well, we would need to change this. But one thing too that might be good is you can pass in size, and we can set that equal to our video size. And then we can say, if you wanted to have a background color, BG color, we can set this to, I'm just going to set it to 4 channel of zeros, just because we had 4 channels above. I do think though everything comes out as RGB, not necessarily RGBA, but this will just help. And this will just set everything to black, but because we don't really care about it, we can set everything to black, and then we can put in like our stuff that we want, which will be basically that gradient clip and the question clip. So barring that no errors have been made, we should essentially be able to run this, and now this will output a video that essentially looks like this gradient with just this question. So rather than what we have here is just an image with our question with a black background. Oh, and really though, one quick question, or one quick change is before we had this, like I mentioned, I had it set it to 800 and none. We want to set that back, because what this will do is shrink the size that we want it to fit in, and then make it so it kind of fits on the height wise at, you know, where we need to, so that it'll fit onto our actual video clip. And then we'll let kind of the gradient image to tell us kind of that whole video size, as well as when we set that video size within our final clip. So from here, I hit enter on the terminal. We'll run our command. It'll go through and it'll start the video clip creation process. Barring that no errors have been made, it'll start the video clip. Okay, so now this is going to create the video clip, and then once this is done, we'll come back and I'll show you the output of this, what we've just coded up. All right, so that just ended, and what we ended up with was this. So we ended up with our quiz reel. There's our gradient, like I mentioned. The yellow is all there, and then it slowly transitions down to that blue color, that Python blue down there. And then we have our question, which with the black background, and we show there it is. So now let's go ahead and let's add the choices like we did with right here. Let's start adding these into our quiz reel. And to do so, we can basically just go through, and what's nice is we'll come up in here, and we're basically, we're just going to create a bunch of clips just like what we did with our question clip, and we're going to make a bunch of little text clips that will go right in our reel. So to do so, we can just simply say our choice clips is equal to an empty list, and what I did is like our answer position is equal to none. And then I said our choice start y is equal to 1,000. Basically what I'm trying to do is, just like what we did here, I'm trying to make this part right here, this text, and I want to start it in the middle of a button, and then from there, each one of these, I want these positioned a certain ways away, and so they look symmetrical and all that different stuff. And to do that, we're going to start here, and then each time we iterate through a loop, we'll go, or through each of our choices, we'll go ahead and say, yep, and now you're there, now you're there. So that way, all the X's will be centered, and the Y's will start at a certain spot and then be evenly spaced. This is essentially what we're trying to do. And then our choice width and then height is going to be equal to like what we did with our question, but then we really want to set a size for this to only be like 100 pixels, 150 pixels high. And then the choice spacing, like I mentioned, we want them evenly spaced around. I found that when I did this, we can do our choice width and height, so -1, because we want to grab this 150, but I don't want to hard code. I only want to hard code one spot, right? And then I can say plus 25. So meaning that we're going to take 150 and then from 150 pixels, we're like basically we want it to be that plus 75 to change kind of like to add that onto our spacing. So we're basically going to take this and increment it with kind of like our start position to kind of help us get that spacing. So to do that, we're going to say for I and then choice in choices. I do want to enumerate this so we can get that I, right? We're going to go ahead and we're going to create our choice clip. So our choice clip is going to look like basically what we did with mp.text clip. And then we're going to say, we're going to pass it the choice and then the font size. And I believe I had this at 100 notes. Yep, 100. And then we can pass that a color. And what color did we have here? So when it's not in there, I did it that the Python yellow color, which I found in this one, you can also pass the hex value. And I did that Python yellow value I found that we did with our gradient. Where is our gradient stuff? So this yellow RGB value converts to the hex value of FFD343. All right. And then we also want to give it a size, which is going to basically be our choice. Like every one of these things, we want it to be the same, right? So it's going to be that choice width and height that we did. And then I don't want to give it a background color yet because we're going to do something different for that. All right, so that's our choice clip, right? But going forward, we need to know which choice is the answer later on because the position of the answer, because we want to basically, when it's done, we want to highlight it like green, right? So we're going to come down here and we're going to say if the choice is equal or is not equal, and then we have that answer variable up above. So if we go up here, remember we have answer. Ooh, too far. We have answer right there. So what we can say, if it's not equal to the answer, well, essentially, I think you could say if it's equal to the answer. Then we're going to say our answer pose is going to be equal to your choice start y plus I times your choice spacing, right? And then we essentially want to do choice clips dot append, and then we'll do the choice clip. And then you can also too like do something where you set the duration. So I could also say, oops, choice clip is equal to choice clip dot set duration, and then for now we'll just set all of them to equal to the total duration time. So now how do we get this thing into our basically how do we get it into our video? We go ahead and do what we did before, which is simply we're going to come down here and right after this guy we're just going to we're going to, because it's already it's already in a list, so we're actually going to just append and create a list. Now we could do something up here. We can say use clips is equal to, and I can say, come right here, that, we'll change this to use clips, and then we can just do like you can append lists or you can combine lists by doing the addition. So I can say choice clips. All right, so we've got our clips. We're going to pass it in. We've added our choice clips to it. Like these are a single clip, and we know that the composite takes in a list of clips. And so we had to combine these two and then add it to this choice clip. So now that they should equal just a set of essentially 4 plus 1 plus 2. So 6 different clips. So now, if barring nothing has been done wrong, we should be able to go in and run this and start creating another version or the next phase of our reel that includes just the answers lined up, in a different row. And you can see in this case, our read is going to be at the end. So we'll double check and make sure that the choices, you can see it right there when we did the mixing it up, that our choice should be at the very bottom of our reel, which in our case would be down here instead of at the top. So that's going to start creating. I'll stop the video here and we'll come back and we'll see what the final output is of that of the updates that we did. All right, so that finished, but I also when I went to go check it, I realized that we made a mistake. And it's very simple, but essentially if I go back and check this, so I ran it and then I didn't see a result. Like this was completely basically looked like what it did before with just our question, right? But then I changed the font color to black and then I realized that, it all put it in the same spot. We forgot to set the position. And so I changed it back to the original color we had. And then I'm going to show you the addition is that we need to do to basically set our position, because we need to set our position, right? So to set our position, we're going to say choice clip dot center, and then we're going to say set position. And then what we want to do is basically, like I mentioned before, is we need to give it an X and a Y that we want each of these to be at. Well, we know that we want these centered, right? We want these centered vertically, or I guess that's centered horizontally. We want them centered horizontally. So the X we want center, And then the y, we actually want this to be equation because we want to change this. And that is basically going to be something similar to what we did here when we were finding the answer position. So we're going to say the choice start y plus I times the choice space. So what this will do is this will do order of operations. So what this will do is like if it's I is 0, then it's going to start basically, it should be right here at our y value. If I is 1, then it'll do the spacing to there and then so on and so forth, right? So that is how we set our position. So now I'm going to go ahead and rerun this, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how we go from this, little mistake of not setting the position to what it'll look like once we do have the position set. So go ahead and run that, and we'll come back once that's done. And if you go here and look at our real, we can see that we now have the letters in the position that we ran in, and we can kind of scroll up here and we can look at like, here was our original choices that we put in. Here is the choices that we randomized, and that is the order in which we have it there, with our answer in this case is being the third one. Now, this isn't always going to be the same because, again, we're rerunning these each time, and as a result of rerunning these each time, it's going to change because we have random in there, right? Now, I could set a seed and it would be the same, and maybe I should do that, but I kind of want to just go through this as we're going, just to show you that, every time you run this, it's not going to be the same, and that's the idea, right? And that's why I'm not using a seed. Essentially, in the end, we could rerun this a bunch of different times. We could show that like we could handle the answers being in any, or the choices being in any different order. So we have now kind of a video, right? We have 9 seconds of just text doing nothing, right? So now is the time to kind of add this stuff in. Where we can have the answers, have like a blue background, and then we can do things where we can change at a certain time period when the answer gets revealed, right? So let's hop right in, and this first thing we're going to do is we're just going to add the blue background to each one of these, and then we'll go in talking about how to reveal that answer. So to do this, I created a function that will we're going to create another image clip, kind of like we did with the gradient, but we're going to do this as the rounded, what did I call this? I called this, checking my notes here, the create rounded rectangle is essentially what I called it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a function right up here. Def create rounded rectangle. There we go. Okay, now the idea of this is it's going to create kind of this rounded rectangle look, right? With a border. And so the inputs to this rounded rectangle is going to be the size that we want. So we're going to say size, and it's also going to be the radius and the color that we want, and then the border thickness, or border color and border thickness. And we're going to set these to default values of just white. So 255, 255, 255, and then we'll do gradient. We'll do it with the possibility if we want to do gradients in there as well. And then we say a border thickness equal to 10. Okay. So there is our function. Now we just have to go ahead and create this. So we can assume that all the size stuff that we're passing in is going to be a tuple. So of width and height, just kind of like what we did above, is equal to the size. All right. And then this is kind of what we did. So I found that, and this is kind of why we're using pillow, which we actually, for this function, need to come up here, and we need to come and from pill, import image, and image draw. So this is why we use these guys, is because we need to create this kind of like rounded thing. And you can do it with just normal like OpenCV stuff, but it's really kind of a pain in the butt, in my opinion. And Pillow kind of has this great function where you can just call, we'll kind of set stuff up here, and then you can just call a function called rounded rec, and it will create it for you. But essentially from this width and height, we have to have a total width and height. Total, and this includes our border, right? So we have the width and height of our button, or internal, I guess you'd say, and then the width and height of total of like with the border. So total height, and that is going to be equal to width times 2, or no, plus 2 times the border thickness, make it a little bit thicker, and actually should do this on 2 separate lines. This will be height, because it's basically the same thing. But hit the wrong thing. Wrong shortcut key. It's equal to that, and we don't want commas at the end because that will create tuples, and we don't want them to be tuples. And this is going to be width. Now what we can do here is we can go ahead and we can create an image that is from the image from Pillow's image class, and we can say new and then RGBA, and we want it to be the size of our total. And now RGBA is different than OpenCV. RGBA is XY, not YX like OpenCV. So we can go total width and total height. And then we can also pass in kind of like the color that we want. In our case, we're going to say 0, 0, 0, 0. All right. So now we have a black image that is the size of the rounded rectangles that we want. And now we can come in here and we can say draw and equals to image draw of our image. So basically now we want to take this image and draw it. There we go. All right. And then the easy part, draw dot rounded rectangle. And then you can pass in kind of like the position at which you want this to start. So 0, 0. And then you want it to go to width and height. Okay, so that'll just go from the 0, 0 to the width and height point. Or so, I guess it would be like 0, 0 to the width and height. So down in that corner. And then we're going to say we want it to fill is equal to the color that we pass in. All right. And then we want it to outline is equal to the border color that we pass in, or otherwise white. So if we don't pass anything, it'll just be white. And then the width, we want it to be the border thickness. So this will be kind of like this will give us our outline. And then the radius is the radius that we pass in. All right, so we don't get confused with what we're using, we can use, we can basically create another function so that, because if we were using an OpenCV image before, and then Pillow and them are a little bit different. So we can say image, we now want you is now equal to pill underscore 2 CV, and then image, and then return image. And then we'll have to go create this pill.2CV. So we'll come down here and say def of pill to CV2, and then we'll pass in our image, and then we'll basically just say, now the only so there's a couple ways to do this, and I found that like depending on how we did stuff, it will, because when we did the gradient stuff, we went up here and we basically set the colors how we wanted to at each individual pixel. When you do OpenCV stuff, it doesn't necessarily do traditional RGB. It does BGR. And so like if we just convert this normally, so like the NumPy array version is equal to like so I don't want to do that. I want to say MP image is equal to mp.array and then pass in image. And now normally what would happen is you do something like, I would say like OpenCV. So I would say like, yeah, OpenCV image is equal to, and then you do something like cv2.cvt color, and then we'd pass in our mp image, and then we do something like cv2, and then I'd say like dot color RGBA to BGRA, which would be like the expected format that you want. However, when doing this project and kind of setting the template up for this as I was going through and kind of building this, I found that really all you need to do is just convert it into an array, and I spelled that right. You need to convert it into an array and just return that because of us setting stuff specifically. So all we need to really do is do return open or np image, and now we have a rounded rectangle. So now that we have this rounded rectangle, what we can do is add it like we did before, and we'll go ahead and we'll come down here, and in our choices we'll basically create this rounded rectangle that we'll add behind each one of our choice clip or answers or choices, and we'll create another image clip to do that. So let's pick up from there. All right, so now that we've created kind of like our function that does our rounded rectangles, what we can do is come back down into our for loop that we were creating the choices, and we can create a rounded rectangle for each one of those. So I'm going to say rounded rect image is equal to create rounded rectangle, and I'm going to pass in the choice, width, and height of each of our buttons, because remember that's the size that we set in. And then the radius I'm going to say is 20. And then I'm going to say that the color that I want it to be is kind of like that blue color that we had. And I'm going to put it in RGBA format, and we're going to say, and that was in here 54, 119, 174, and then 255. And then the border color and the border thickness I'm just going to leave, and we'll just create that. So from there, we've got our rounded rectangle or a rounded rect image. We've created our choice clip. Now we just need to create the, we set its position. And now we just need to create the rounded rec clip, right? And then that's going to be the clip that goes in there. So to do so, again, so we'll say rounded, wow, rounded rect clip. And just like what we did with the gradient one, is equal to mp.image clip. And that is going to be, we're just going to pass in our rounded rect image. All right, rounded rect image. And then we'll set that as that. And then for this one, I'm going to say, kind of do the same thing we did before, and we'll talk about this in a minute, is going to be equal to duration of, or dot set duration, and then this will be our total duration. All right, so that'll kind of be like what we did right there, or excuse me, like what we did right here. And then I'm going to do basically something similar where we need to add those together. So we're going to say rounded rect clips is equal to an empty list, and we'll come down here and then we'll dot append, and then we'll append our clip. All right, so now we have that. We just need to do what we basically did before, and we just need to simply set our Rect clip to, we just need to add it here again because this is a list, and so we just need to say rounded, nope, not the image, rounded rect clips. We want to add all the different clips together. All right. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and we can rerun this. And ideally what this should do now is basically add all of these rounded things and our text together. So basically we should have a 9-second video that looks just like this very beginning right here, where for 9 seconds, it'll go through and look like that. And then we'll go ahead and change that at, that say maybe at after, you know, the last say 3 seconds, we're displaying the answer and doing some other stuff. So we'll go ahead and let that run, and then we'll come back after that's finished creating, and we'll do the different animation to show the answer at the end. All right, so when I had clipped it, I got an error saying that we didn't have this draw function. It looked just like this. So I had to go back in and say draw, because you can't act like, you need to call the draw function within image draw to actually create it. But then after I reran it, look what I found. Again, we forgot to set the position. So we're going to go ahead and set the position, and we'll get that fixed, and we're going to go back. So again, the position is basically the exact same that we had before. Where did we say the position? So we need to do this basic thing to our rounded rect clips. Because if we don't, then what's going to end up happening is, like you just saw, it's going to just always sit at 0, 0 and be up in that corner, and we're not going to end up with the them around the value that we wanted, right? So to do this, again, just copy this. This is the exact line that we needed, because we want them to be kind of set in the same exact space. So we'll go ahead and rerun this, and then we'll come back, and we should see that the video is updated with our rounded rectangles, which we did make, right? We did make them, they're just in the wrong spot. So come back to that here in a second. All right, so just finished that clip, but I realized something, that order does matter, right? Because, and it depends on how you put stuff into this use clip function. So we originally had this whole thing plus choice clips. Basically, these two values right here were swapped, right? And then when I did that, we ended up with this as is, but then the W, X, A, and R were behind our position stuff. So when I flipped them to this, then we kind of get this, our quiz. We have our quiz, right? So now let's go ahead and start working on displaying the result, the answer. So essentially what I did is I had the image or the answer displayed for the last 3 seconds of our quiz. So that means from time step 6 to time step 9, the answer was revealed. Where in this case, R would be our answer, and it would have shown green, is what I believe I had. I think it was just green, and then I think we changed the text to black. So to do that, we need to edit a few things. So essentially what we need to do, and that's why we did this, I did this precursor to this value to get our answer position, because we're setting clips, but really what we want to do is we want to come bring this guy down, and we want to say that if the choice answer is equal to if the choice is equal to our answer, we only want the duration to be how long it's going to last for is be the total duration minus 3 seconds. And that's because when we create this, we're going to create a new one but it's going to be green and not the blue color, right? And that goes actually the same thing with our choice clip here. Is we want kind of our choice clip to be only set for the exact same thing. Well, we can leave the position the same, I guess, as what we want. So we can Control Z that. But what we want is we want our choice clip is equal to choice clip dot set duration duration, and that is going to be equal to the same thing as well. Because everything else we're going to change to blue. Now, and then we can say here, we can say else we want to do basically these guys, and then their total duration is going to be the whole length of the movie, right? So now we have basically, we've got a rounded rectangle, and we've got our choice clip made. We've got our choice clips, the position set, our rounded rectangle made to a clip, and then its position set. And then what we came down here and said, we said if you're the answer, your rounded rect clip, it's only going to last, that clip is only going to last for 6 seconds, right? Because we're making a 9-second video, so it's going to basically only last up until the last 3 seconds. We're doing that for both our random one, if it's the answer. If it's not the answer, we're setting the duration equal to the just the whole duration. And then what we're going to go do is essentially, we're going to come down here, and we're out of this thing, out of this for loop, and we're going to basically create, I'm going to copy these ones, because we're basically going to do these exact same things, but just for an answer. So we can come down here, and then I'm going to say, we don't want these to be in that for loop still. So we want to dent this out, and I'm going to say answer clip, and we're going to change this to black, and then we're going to say answer clip here, and then the position, the answer clip position, we're just going to take from this pose answer that we set outside. We initially set outside the for loop. We added it there. And then so we can come in here and just do that. And then we'll come and do answer rect clip there. And then we'll say this is answer rect image. And then we can say that this is going to be green. And I'll just say, so this is R and this is G. So that one's gonna be 255 and then this is B. So we can set that. You can set whatever answer color you want. Answer clipped, rect clip, and then we want our rect clip also just to be here. And then what we're going to do, and this is kind of the fun part, is we can say that we can kind of copy these two lines that we grab from here. Answer rect clip, answer clip. All right, then, so we can set the duration. Now, we know that we want it to be the last 3 seconds. So the duration is going to be 3, right? And then what we can say is, we can actually say set start, and we can say that this is going to be at the total duration minus 3 seconds. And basically, I want to do that for both of these guys. And then we come down here, and we're basically going to say plus our plus our answer rect clip, and then our answer clip, right? All right, so barring no issues, we have now, all we've done is inside the for loop, we set the durations based off if it was the answer or not. If it wasn't the answer, it lasted the whole time. If it was, it only lasted up until the last 3 seconds. And then we said, we went outside of the for loop and we created an answer rect clip, and we also created the text clip, and we set that to black, and then if it was the answer, and then we set the answer rect clip to green, and then we set that, the big thing is that we set them for 3 seconds, to last for 3 seconds, and they started at the total duration minus 3, which should be 6 seconds. So if I go ahead and I go and rerun this, we should see that it should start creating the image, and then I'll pull this up basically after it's done creating it, and I'll show you the result that we got. All right, so I realized that when I was doing that, I made a lot of copy and paste errors. So answer clip, this should be answer clip, this should be answer clip, and this should be answer clip. And then, yeah, make the image clip. We're gonna set that. And then I realized that when we make the answer clip, we don't want it to be the choice, because that would be the last choice that was up on our list. We want this to be the answer. All right, so now I'll show you what the output of doing these updates is. And the output was essentially just this. So if I come here and I play this video starting at 0, we see our quiz, everything we've been doing, and now with the last additional update, you'll see that at second 6, R is displayed, and it's displayed for the rest of the video, and it's green, and now it's with the R as black, showing that that is the answer. We have just a very simple, with this code alone, you could display this as a quiz reel type post, right? But to add a little bit more spice and, you know, add a little bit more, I guess, urgency for people to read and figure out an answer, let's add in a countdown timer, just like you kind of saw in this one, where kind of we had, what we did was a 5-second countdown timer, and then the answer was revealed at 6, and then confetti. So we'll do the countdown timer, then we'll do the confetti. So to do the countdown timer, essentially what we want to do now is come down here, and after all of our answer stuff and has been fixed, we can kind of come down here and we'll do a similar type of thing, right? So we'll say countdown, countdown clips is equal to an empty list, and then we'll basically say for I in range. Now, we only want to do for 5 seconds, right? So we want to say for I in range of starting at 5, and then we're going to 0 and then -1. Now, what this will do is it'll start at 5, go to 0, not including 0, and it'll do it by, 1 second going backwards, right? So that's basically what that means. And then we're going to do something very similar to what we've been doing. Is we're going to create a text clip. So I'm going to make sure I don't have a copy and paste there this time. So we're going to have our text. So we're going to have our countdown clip is equal to a text clip with the string format of I. And then our font size, I did 200 for this one. Our color, I did white. And then you can also do like a BG color. And then what I did here is I made this transparent, which you can type in and that works. Transparent. And then the size that we wanted is not our actual size there. I ended up doing basically a 400 by 400 kind of square. Okay, so text clip created, right? And we'll kind of indent these a little bit so that we know kind of where stuff is. All right, so that's just the text clip portion created. Now, let's set our position because we always forget to set the position. At least I do. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that clip is equal to, and then we'll say dot set position. Now, when we set this position, I didn't really have a good way to do this other than being like, it's going to be a tuple, right? And then I just said for the width, it's going to be 1080 divided by 2. So this will put us in the center. So this will put our corner, because like when you do stuff in programming, if you didn't know, like the origin of a square starts, like the origin of like this square it starts up in this corner. So 0, 0 is here, not there in the dead center, right? So in our image, or in our width, we want to say that we want to divide it by 2, and then after it's been divided by 2, because order operations matters, then we're going to subtract 200 because the size that we set our width to be is 400, right? So ideally, this should put us kind of in the center of 1080. Like this should vertically or horizontally center it. Then what I want to do is I want to say that the 1920, we want to divide it by 2 again, so we can get this. And rather than 200, so it would be centered not only like horizontally but vertically, like dead center. We want to shift it up a little bit. So to do that, I ended up doing, you just do -400. So just basically take it. If you did -200, it would put it dead center. But we want to just go up a little bit more, so it's not necessarily dead center. Okay. All right, so the countdown clip, there's our position, right? So now let's do countdown clip is equal to countdown clip. Now we want to set the duration. Set the duration. And we only ever want these to last for 1 second. Oops, hit the wrong button. We only ever want these to last for 1 second, okay? But now here's where it gets a little tricky. We need to set the start time, right? So I'm going to come down here again. Is equal to countdown clip dot set start. And we don't want, we still need our thing to start. Basically, it needs to go to 0 or be done by second 6. So to do so, we need to say that we need to give it like, and we also want it so that it doesn't start right at the beginning. And so if we know that the last 3 seconds, so if we have 9 minus 3, that's 6. We know at 1, it has to, like, it basically has to, and then we have to go 5 seconds there to get our start, because we want a little bit of delay so that, like, people have time to read and not necessarily be hurried, right? So to do so, if it has to end at second 6, and we subtract 5 after that, and that means it has to, and we want to give a little bit of delay, that means it needs to, we need to do 1 plus, and then kind of like 5 minus I, right? Because basically, what this is saying that as it goes through this loop, I is going to start at 5. So that means that our set time when it's at loop index 0, our first countdown of the letter 5, we want it to start at second 1, because 5 minus 5 is 0, plus 1 is set start at 1 second. Then that means that then second 2 will be 4, second 3 will be 3, second 4 will be 2, second 1 will be 5, second 6 it goes away and we turn into our answer, right? So that sets our start time. So now that we have that clip, now we can just say countdown clips, dot append, and then countdown clip. Okay, so that should be the countdown time. That should all be, that is to the countdown timer. And then all we have to do again is come add this to our list plus our countdown clips. Now, because we're not really putting anything behind this under the gradient, or ideally the position in our thing is going to be right here. So we shouldn't have to worry about position and stuff other than like the gradient image that we made in the very beginning of this video needs to be in front, like which we already have, which is right there. And so that should allow that to be there. So we will go ahead and run this, barring no errors. This will go ahead and create, and we'll come back. I'll show you the update of what this creates, and then we'll move on to the last section, which is the fun part of creating the confetti. All right, so in the thing I mentioned that if you need to do for the height minus 400 and not minus 200, but then when I set it, I typed 200, but I switched it, and look, this is the output after with only that minor change, and everything else, the code that we did the same. The output that we got was essentially that at second one, it starts 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The big reveal. R is our answer, right? So we now have a quiz reel that, like, originally when I was creating this whole like thing for my YouTube and Instagram page, like I was just gonna stop here, but then I was like, dude, we need some confetti, right? Like that's cool and all, and people probably, like, if they don't know what's going on, they probably think they're crappy reels or crappy YouTube shorts because they're just like, it's just a quiz question, like, and it displays nothing, like doesn't show me how to do anything. Well, behind the scenes, this whole thing has been created with Python. You have literally created this step by step. If you've been here this long, we have literally stepped through this whole process and created a quiz style video that you can make strictly with Python. No templates, no nothing else, just Python. That's pretty cool in my opinion. But now let's top it off. Let's add the confetti, right? Now to do so, the one thing that's interesting about the confetti is, like, to do confetti with this is you essentially have to do an overlay, or otherwise you're just going to get another clip thing. And so I was trying to figure this out, and this is one thing I had to go back to ChatGPT for and ask, because I was like, I don't know how to do overlays with these things. And when doing it, like, I went down this major rabbit hole diving into the MoviePy code and found that, like, you have to, like, kind of create the final clip, create a confetti clip, and then marry the two through another composite clip, and that kind of gives you the confetti. So that's kind of like, with sparing you essentially the basically 2 to 3 hours that I went down to figure this out, I'm going to spare you those details. I'm just going to show you how we did it. So to do this, we have a final clip, and like we have here, we need to set the duration of our final clip to kind of, now we know it should be 9 minutes, right? Or not 9 minutes, 9 seconds, because that we said, equals to final clip dot set duration, and then this is total duration, right? Okay, so we have that. Now what we need to do, and then this is here where we're going to go and create a confetti clip. So we're gonna say here, say confetti clip is going to be equal to generate confetti clip, and then we're gonna pass in a duration, and we're gonna set that duration is equal to 3 because we want to do the last 3 seconds again. And then the size of it is going to be, we're going to have a variable called, or argument called size, and then this is just, it can be equal to our video size. All right, so let's go ahead and create this function. So we'll scroll all the way back, all the way through this, and we're going to go ahead and say def create confetti clip, and then it takes some duration, which we could set a, we could essentially set, I'm checking my notes here real quick. We could set a duration hard-coded or to 3, so it's a default to 3, but we're going to require the user to put this in. So we'll say duration is equal to that, and then the size, we'll require them to put in the size, so that way we know what size we're creating it to, right? And then we're going to add another one. It's going to be like the number of particles that we want to create, because basically all I do is create a bunch of particles to do this. So here we go. So we have duration, size, and then particles. And then we're going to say, we're going to make a internal function to this called def of make particle, and I cannot spell. And then we're going to say x is equal to mp.random, and then .randint, because we want a rand value. And then we get a pass in 0 to size of 0. And so in Python with internal functions like this, if you're not used to them, I don't use these a ton. I try to make them not have to use these, but this is one way I found to do it, especially with talking with ChatGPT about it. That's kind of what it led to. But in scope wise, this size character can be anything within this function outside, like if it was up here or whatever, it being passed in, it can like inside here, it can use those outside functions like it is here, right? In the scoping wise. And then we want to do the same thing with y, but now this is going to be size 1 because remember with height, and so that's how we can get that. And then what we want to do is we want to say a radius radius, our little confetti circles, is going to be equal to np.random.randint. And then we're just going to say 5 to 15 pixels, or radius for pixels, or confetti, excuse me. And then the color is going to be equal to a tuple of, and we're going to map this tuple using an int value to an np.random.randint of 0 to 256. So that should give us the value 0 to 255. And then we're also going to say the size of it, though, we want to get out. You can pass in the size variable, and we're going to say 3. So that'll give us 3 random ints, right? And that will then allow us to essentially take this 3 random ints, map them to tuples and an int value, and then we'll put them in this tuple. So we get kind of like an RGB kind of tuple value, right? And then what we can say is we'll return a dictionary where it's just like pose is equal to XY, because we have a 2D video thing, right? And then the radius is equal to the radius, and then the color is going to be the color. All right, so now we have this kind of like internal make particle function within this thing so that we can call it. So what we can say is our particles is equal to we're going to do list comprehension here, and we're going to say make particle, call that for, and we don't really care for anything, for in range of particles. So this needs to be number of particles. So like num. So basically, go through this number of particles that we pass in, which by default is going to be 200, and create this kind of like particle object or particle information, a list of dictionaries that contains this information, right? Then what we're going to do is create another internal function called makeFrame. And then we're going to say t, and then we're going to pass in a variable t, and then we're going to say frame is equal to mp.0. So make a black background, essentially, right? And the size of it is going to be size of 1, because remember, this is OpenCV now. When we're using kind of like creating like an OpenCV or NumPy type thing, we need to go height column or height width, not width height. So size 1 and size 0. So as we swap that up, and then the number of channels is 3, so for RGB, and then the D type is going to be equal to mp.uint8, not unit8, which I always do for whatever reason. Okay, now we have the frame, so we're going to say for p in particles, what we're going to do is xy is equal to p.pose, okay, and then our radius is equal to p.radius. And then our color is equal to p.color. Okay? Now we're going to create a circle. So we're going to say cv2.circle, and we're going to give it the frame that we want to create the circle on, and then we're going to give it the position. So we're going to get x, y plus int t times size of 1, right? Divided by the duration, and then the radius of the circle, and then the color of the circle plus 255 and then minus 1. All right, so what this is doing, and then we need to return the frame. All right, so what this is doing is basically looping through each of the particles and creating a circle object where for each time t that passes in through the making of the frame, it's going to basically change the size or change the position of that particle so it kind of drifts downward and for a given duration. So for our whole thing, it'll be for the whole 3 seconds, right? So then we give it the color, and then we add a alpha value at the end of it, and then I believe the last value is kind of like the border, and so we say -1 for none. All right, so we have that. And now what we need to do is say return an mp.video clip, because remember we have to create a composite of 2 video clips and take the final clip that we had before and then make this video clip and then combine them. So we're going to video clip of make frame, so we can pass in a function and it'll do it for us because it's going to pass in that t for us. And then we say duration is equal to duration, and then we're going to say .add mask, because this will be a mask over our normal video. All right, so now that we have that, we can come back down here, and now we need to create a blended. So we have that video clip, but now we need to blend it with our final clip with our video clip. So let's go ahead and create that. All right, so now we're going to create, like I mentioned, that blended function that's going to blend these two videos together so that we kind of get that overlay that we want. So to do so, we're just going to say blended clip is equal to blend confetti. Yeah, and then we're gonna pass in the final clip that we had that has all of our quiz, right? Basically the quiz clip, and then our confetti clip. Confetti. I don't know why I spelled confetti with an E on there, so we're gonna change that. Confetti clip, and then we're gonna basically take final, and then we're gonna come up here, back under our function. Whoa, too far. All right, so we're gonna come back right here, and we're gonna say def blend confetti, and we're gonna say main clip confetti clip, and then what we're going to do here is we're going to say def make frame, pass in a t, and then we're going to say frame is equal to main clip dot get frame of t. So we need to get that, like for every time step we need to get t for that frame, and then we need to say if main clip dot duration minus confetti clip dot duration is less than or equal to t, which is less than or equal to the main clip duration. So it's in between these, right? Duration. So basically it's like this would be the start time of the confetti clip, and then this is like the max of the actual max time of the video. That's what that's saying. Then what we're gonna do is say confetti frame is equal to confetti clip dot get frame, and then we're gonna say t minus the main clip dot duration minus the confetti clip duration. So get that frame that's at that t, that's towards the end, right? And then what we're gonna do is gonna say frame is equal to cv2 dot add weighted, and this is going to add to this frame, so to our main frame that we had here, it's going to say to this frame value of 1 confetti frame. So we're going to get this confetti frame 1.0. Okay, so we're basically, this is where you're going to take this thing and go internal to the actual like OpenCV, like the actual like 3-digit RGB frame, and we're going to like marry the two onto each other, right, and add this kind of weighted value there. And we want to give it the full weight, pass in the frame, and then we want to return, after it's all said and done, return the frame. Okay, so now we have the frame. We can do what we did last time, which is basically this, but without the mask, because we're not adding a mask this time. Because before, we have to add that mask so we can do this here, right? So now we can say the MP video clip, make frame, duration is the duration, and we should have our confetti clip. So come all the way back. Oh, notice that there was something I didn't like. And oh yeah, and this is going to be main clip dot duration, because we don't actually pass in the duration. We have to get that from the actual clip. So duration, there you go. So now we can come all the way back down, blend confetti clip, not clips, and then rather than saying final clip dot write, we're going to just say blended clip dot write, and copy this, paste it there. And now if we go ahead and run this, we should see that this will add the confetti to our kind of quiz clip, and then we'll have the full thing. This should give us the end. So I'm gonna let this run, and then we will see what the output will be. All right, so we have blended it. Now it's time for the final reveal. But for one thing, I want you to realize that I did make a mistake. I spelled circle wrong, so that was the first mistake. But the biggest mistake of it all is this frame right here. When we return this make frame, it needs to be on the outside of the for loop. I think before I had it on the inside because I wanted to go do the reveal of everything. I saw one particle just come down, and I was like, that is the wimpiest set of confetti I have ever seen. And then I realized after putting in a print statement that we were only looping through this for loop once because we had something that looked like this, and we don't want that, or else it's going to exit that, and it's only going to give us one frame with confetti, which is going to just be one measly thing. So what we need to do is bring this outside of the for loop so that when we do make it, we end up with the final reveal of our quiz question, where you get something that looks just like this, and boom, confetti. The R has been highlighted. We get confetti coming down for the last 3 seconds. And now, the nice thing about this whole script, guess what? We come down here, and the only thing that we really need to change is the question and the choices, and we can use this for everything else. Now, granted, however, I will point out that we didn't do any fitting to any specific size of area. So if you get like R is like super long, we may need to update the code to add for that. So if that is something you'd like to see, leave a comment below. leave the comment of additions. Just type in additions in the comment below, and we'll know that to see how many people we can get to see who would want to see a longer thing, and we'll go from there. So this has been a very long video. I hope this tutorial has been valuable. I hope you've learned a few things, and we've kind of taken some of, I mean, this is a pretty advanced, I would say, tutorial, but like some of the things even from the beginner side, like we've done like random stuff before. We've dealt with dictionaries. We've dealt with lists. We haven't done with, I think these are called, I believe these are as a closure. We haven't dealt with these in Python. I haven't showed these a lot on the channel because I don't use them a ton. But we've learned a lot. We've used different packages and stuff, and we've combined a lot of stuff together. And sometimes a package like this or a project like this is what you need to dive in and to kind of just get your hands dirty and realize what stuff that you don't know, what things you need to Google. And I can promise you, even I was Googling and asking ChatGPT some questions on this because there's just some things like when you dive into a new realm of things that you're just not going to know. But if you know the basics, you can accomplish kind of anything you want because a lot of these are just using a lot of the things that we've already discussed and covered on this channel. So I hope that you found this valuable. If you have any questions or if things aren't working, leave them in the comments below. I hope this provided value. If it did, please hit the like button. Consider subscribing. And until next time, keep on programming.